Hi, and welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Today, I want to talk about comparison and jealousy. Welcome, everybody. My name is Kale Houser. Thank you for joining the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast today. I appreciate your time. Today, I want to talk about comparison and jealousy. Certainly, comparison can be a good thing, right? It's kind of the basis of any sort of, whether it be motivation or goal setting. You're comparing yourself from where you're at now to where you want to be. And usually that's in the form of looking at somebody else. Somebody else is where you want to be, whether it be a fitness journey. So somebody else has this ripped six-pack abs and they can bench press, X amount of pounds, whatever a good bench press is. They can run a marathon, things of that nature. And that's just not you at the time, but that's where you want to be. So you compare yourself like, okay, yep, I recognize I'm not doing the things I need to do to get to where that person is and their level. But that kind of comparison is the positive kind. That's the kind of comparison that leads to actual change and change for the better versus negative comparison. And what we're going to talk about today is more on the negative aspect of comparison. That's the comparing yourself to other people in the form of, it's kind of inadvertently putting yourself down, like, oh, I'm never going to be that good of a public speaker. I'm never going to have, that amazing boyfriend or that amazing girlfriend. And it's a comparison, or my paycheck's never going to be as big. I'm never going to be as rich. I'm never going to drive as nice a car, things of that nature, right? So instead of looking at how you can change things for the best, my figure fell down right here. So instead of looking at how you can change things for the best, you're looking at the inadequacies in your own life. And instead of looking at how you can change those inadequacies and how you can learn and grow, you're just pretty much just putting yourself down while putting that other person on the pedestal. So that kind of comparison inevitably leads to jealousy, okay? So there's a difference of, looking at, Brad Pitt or, name any celebrity, right? Tom Cruise or Angelina Jolie, and saying, oh, I'm never going to have X, Y, and Z what they did. Well, the reality is they worked really hard to get where they're at. They've done it for a long time, and certainly they've probably got some lucky breaks along the way, whether they got discovered or anything of that nature. But they put in the effort and work to do what they do, right? They control their diet and they work really hard at their craft and promote themselves, all that kind of stuff, which just are things that maybe you aren't doing. But that leads to jealousy, right? And that's how you end up with stalkers and things like that on the extreme case of that. But what I'm talking about is anything that you take out of the purely motivational to affect change in your own life by comparison into the jealousy aspect. And I want to take an example of this in my own life. So this happened several years ago. I had been in the Air Force for about 10 years, 5 as an enlisted, up into a staff sergeant, and then I had just put on captain, so about 4.5 or so as an officer. And I had just gotten back from Afghanistan. I did a year in Afghanistan as a lieutenant. And while I was in Afghanistan, I found out I was cross-training from a mechanical engineer in the Air Force to an MQ-9 pilot, which was pretty exciting. I was pretty stoked for that. So I get back, get in process, take my little vacation and stuff, and we report down to San Antonio for training. And training's going great, and I think I talked to you about this in previous episodes. I earned the moniker of Grandpa Kale because I was a good, almost legit 10 years older than pretty much everyone in my class. And I was naturally the class leader because I was the highest ranking and the oldest. And I remember this so vividly. There was a young lieutenant in our class, and we were on a break, and something was going on that day. I forget what it was, but we were in full service dress. So our blue slacks, our blue shirt and ties, and our blazers, our outer jackets that had our full ribbon racks on them, right? And all of our rank and various badges and things of that nature. Well, as you can imagine, as somebody that had been in the Air Force for 10 years at that point, I had a decent size ribbon rack, and honestly, quite larger than most other people because of my deployments, because I had been on 2 deployments at that point, one of them being a year long, and the things that I had earned from that. No big deal. But I remember this so specifically. We were hanging out in kind of the common area and just chatting, and this young lieutenant kind of looks at me and goes, "Man, I wish I had a ribbon rack like that." And it took me back, because remember I talked about this deer in the headlights, same thing. This was one of those moments like, how do I respond to that? Like, from my perspective, we're not equals here, okay? I'm a 10-year Air Force veteran at this point. You're a 2-month Air Force veteran at this point. Everyone in my class had just graduated. Well, not everyone. There were some cross trainees that had been in the Air Force, but this particular case, they just graduated college maybe 2-3 months prior to this, a couple months, I don't know exactly, but less than a year earlier. They hadn't even been in a job in the Air Force. They were in the training pipeline to go do our job, to be MQ-9 pilots. So, they had the typical just Air Force service ribbon and training ribbon. No big deal. Totally normal and expected of anyone that is new at something. They don't have the accoutrements and the awards and rewards of having done something for a long time, right? And it was one of those instances, and I kind of let it pass, almost laughed it off. I didn't take it very seriously because it was so, in my mind, just a little bizarre that you would be comparing yourself to somebody like me. It would be like me going up to a 1-star general who'd been in the military for 20 plus years and going, "Man, I can't believe I don't have a Silver Star, or I don't have a Legion of Merit, or whatever higher ranking ribbon and awards and medals that generals get. Because I'm not even in their league. It's a totally apples and oranges kind of comparison. And if I continued to do that, it would just lead to jealousy, right? And that's what I'm talking about here is, in this instance, somebody was looking at this outward appearance of my accomplishments, right? And that certainly wasn't even the whole story. That's just what the Air Force had chosen to recognize outwardly in the form of ribbons. And that can lead to a whole different discussion of what's an appropriate method to recognize people and honor their contributions and things, right? In the military, ribbons and medals are certainly the primary way that is done, and that has its pluses and minuses, and people take different things more seriously than others. I am not such a big into the ribbons and things of that nature. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. Thank you so much for at least recognizing that I did this year deployment with a ribbon and a medal. I appreciate that. But it wasn't the end-all be-all, right? I'm much more of a, did my coworkers appreciate me? Did I contribute to the mission? That kind of thing. But that's just me. There are other people that, man, if they don't get that ribbon to put on their rack and grow that bugger from, across their whole chest, kind of the joke being the Mexican general with all these medals all over themselves. That's a big deal to them. They see that outward sign of accomplishment as kind of validation for themselves. And again, that's what we're moving from comparison into the jealousy range. Now, I bring this up because I want to make sure you, as the leader of your organization, somebody that may be responsible for implementing these programs of recognition, you see and pay attention to what your workforce values. And certainly people are going to value different things. People are motivated and inspired by different things, especially those outward things, whether they be trophies or certificates, things of that nature, and some just don't care. And everyone is different in that scenario, okay? What you need to be aware of is when somebody is moving from that comparison to that jealousy range. And this will often, I would argue that this was the prime time for that to happen would be as you bring in new employees. Okay, so you've got seasoned employees, whether that's you as the owner, you've been doing this for a long time and around, you've made your way through the ranks of your company and your organization, or you started it yourself in your garage however many years ago. You've seen all the things, you've done all the things, so you kind of have those accolades, whether it be in your community or your organization itself. And then you're bringing on, it could be a brand new college graduate, it could be a brand new high school graduate, depending on what kind of organization you have that doesn't have that. And they can easily move into that jealousy range and actually getting discouraged of, oh, well, I'm never going to have, this big community award that you received last year because of your involvement in the community, right? Because they're brand new. And you need to pay attention to that and don't dismiss it like I did. I missed an opportunity to really find out and talk to this young lieutenant and set them up for success throughout their career, to kind of come and be that older mentor that I wish I would have had. We've talked about this in other episodes, that I missed out on having mentors. And I make no claims of being perfect. This was one of my fallible moments that I missed out on this opportunity to mentor this young lieutenant and say, well, hey, let's discuss that. Do you think it's appropriate that either you as a young lieutenant 4 months into the Air Force, into your career, should have a rack like this? Does that validate these awards that somebody such as yourself that, no offense, haven't done really anything other than show up to work, should earn these? Or vice versa, should I, somebody who's been in the Air Force, has done multiple deployments, for 10 years plus, has done all these things, should I have a ribbon rack like yours? Should I only have 2 or 3? So where's the balance there, right? So I missed that opportunity to get them to step back from just the outside visual, like, oh, cool, big rack, big ribbon rack, into the let's analyze this and see what the real issue is, right? And that's what you need to do with your people, especially if you see instances of this pop up. You need to step back and analyze, what is this coming from, and figure out what motivates them. What are their goals? Is their goal to get that silver star? Is their goal to, get that big community trophy or that, top prize in your law firm? Then help them do that. They've shown that that's important to them. Help them figure out what are some of the things that they need to do to be competitive for those awards or those promotions, whatever that case may be that they're comparing themselves to, okay? And this is a prime opportunity for you to kind of come along, one, get to know and connect with your employees a little bit better, but figure out what motivates them. What are things that potentially you could implement in your organization that would further motivate people? Whether it be the Air Force did this great thing, well, I consider it great, for top performers on physical fitness tests in order to help people actually do really well, other than just kind of the bare minimum passing their physical fitness test of, hey, if you got I think it was in our squadron, if you got a 90 or above, you got an extra day off, a day pass to use however you want, just like a free vacation day. If you got a 95 and above, you got a 2-day pass, and then I think it was a 98 and above on your test, you got a 3-day pass. And that was free vacation that the commander just instituted as a way to help motivate people to, actually work out and things of that nature. And you can certainly do similar things like that, not necessarily days off, but whatever the case may be. Like, hey, you get, the front parking spot, right? The employee of the month parking spots. You get, whatever bonuses. There's 1,000 of them depending on what your organization is and what your structure is like. But the point being that people are motivated by a vast difference of things, and no two people are rarely the same in what motivates them. So I highly encourage you to kind of think about and analyze, one, certainly what motivates you as the leader, whether you're the business owner or a mid-level leader, and two, what motivates your people? How can you get them on board to make that connection with them, and then eventually move from motivation to actual inspiration in your workplace, which is the ultimate goal of this podcast and my company, Kale Houser Leadership. So again, thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I really appreciate it. Drop me a line anytime at kalehouserleadership.com. And no matter where you're at in the world, I hope you have a fantastic afternoon. Have a good day.